Welcome back, my friends. Today I thought to discuss some essay type questions from past papers, and we'll move on to the question. So this is a past paper question that I am going to discuss today, and this is related to properties of elements in the periodic table, or the properties related to first 20 elements in the periodic table. Okay, let me read this question. A, E, G, J, L, M, Q and R are 8 consecutive elements in the periodic table. The atomic number of all these elements are less than 20. E naturally occurs in allotropic forms, and one of the forms conducts electricity. Within brackets, here the given symbols are not the standard symbols of the elements. First question, what is the element E? Second question, of the above elements, part A, which element occurs as a noble gas at room temperature? Part B, which element has the highest electronegativity? Part C, which element is at the topmost level of the activity series? Question number 3, draw the Lewis dot diagram of a molecule formed by the element G with hydrogen. Of the above elements, which element is most suitable to produce a sample of gas in the laboratory? Question number 5, write the balanced chemical equation for the reaction of R with steam. Copy the diagram given below into your answer script and draw a sketch of the variation of first ionization energy of above elements. Within bracket, it is not necessary to show the atomic number and the values of ionization energy. It is sufficient to mention only the elements. Okay, we'll first, before we are going to discuss about the answers, we'll get a little approach to the question. So in the question, it says it has 8 consecutive elements, which are A, E, G, J, L, M, Q and R, and all have atomic numbers less than 20. So it is obvious that it discusses about the first 20 elements in the periodic table. And it says the most important point in this explanation is this about E. It says that E has naturally occurring allotropic forms, and one of the forms conducts electricity. So this is actually directly explains about carbon. So from the first 20 elements, carbon has, as you know, they have many allotropic forms, but mainly carbon and graphite are the allotropic forms of carbon. And out of those two allotropic form, carbon with the allotropic form graphite conducts electricity. So this therefore the E here, E is carbon. So now it is really easy for us to find what are the other elements actually. If it is E, we can say A is boron, E is carbon, G is nitrogen, J is oxygen, L is fluorine, M is neon, then Q is sodium, R is magnesium. Really easy. So for the first question is, what is the element T? So the answer is carbon. Then in the second question they ask, part A, noble gas at room temperature. Obvious, that is neon. But here they have not given the answers in standard symbols. Therefore we have to mention the answer in the symbol that they have given to each and every element. Therefore actual answer is M. So actually a noble gas is any of the gaseous element occupying group 8 or group 0 of the periodic table. So naturally, according from the first 20 elements, helium, neon and argon are noble gases. Okay. Then what is the question number B 2 part B and C, the higher element with highest electronegativity and which is at the topmost level in the activity series. So if you consider about the electronegativity is a measure of the tendency of an atom to attract a shared pair of electrons towards itself. So if you consider about the order of electronegativity, I would like to focus your attention on the first three topmost level elements with highest electronegativities. So fluorine has the highest electronegativity, followed by oxygen, then by nitrogen. And also other most important factor is these three elements capable of forming hydrogen bonds when it is joined with hydrogen. Therefore answer for this is L, because L represents fluorine. Okay, then element which is at the activity series. So here this image is a coincide depictions of the elements or the relative positions of elements in the activity series, and at the topmost level it shows the most reactive elements, and at the bottom shows the least reactive elements. So there's a little principle that mostly the elements above hydrogen are highly reactive and they tend to oxidize always, and below hydrogen are little bit reluctant to oxidize because they may be prefer to be stay in stable states. So that means the elements above hydrogen will react with hydrogen to reduce hydrogen to form H2, but elements below or the metals below hydrogen won't reduce H plus to H2. Okay, so from this it is obvious that according to the consecutive elements that we have arranged, sodium should be the one with highest activity. Therefore answer is Q, because Q represents sodium. Then question number 3 says, draw the Lewis dot diagram of the molecule of the element G with hydrogen. G is actually represents nitrogen. So in order to draw the diagram, even though we don't know about the structures or anything, or exact structure of a molecule, we can get an idea from these things. So the best approach is, first you find what is the position of this element in the periodic table. That means the group that it belongs. So from the group we can get an idea about its valency. From valency we can get an idea about the number of bonds that it can form. So here it is obvious that nitrogen is present in group 5, so therefore its valence is 3, and hydrogen it has a valency of 1. Therefore we can, from these two factors, we can derive its chemical formula. From the chemical formula we can get an idea about the number of bonds even. So here I have shown you the chemical formula for the G with H. It is Ga3, just like ammonia. So when we so the answer is circled with a red color marker, and you can see that this is the Lewis dot diagram for the GH3 molecule. So the most important thing that you need to remember when you are drawing a Lewis dot diagram is the central atom should fulfill the octet. That means it should have a complete electronic configuration with its outermost energy level having 8 electrons within it. So here for the for bonding it requires 2 electrons for each bond. So here 3 GH bonds are present, totally 6, but in order to complete the octet it requires 2 more electrons. So 2 dots or the lone it requires 2 lone electron pair. So it is represented as 2 dots here. So answer is this one for the third one. Okay. Well, now we'll discuss about question number 4. For the production of which is the most suitable element for the production of hydrogen gas in the laboratory. Okay, there are so many methods for the synthesis of hydrogen gas in the laboratory, but most easiest and quickest way to produce is reacting a dilute strong acid with a metal. But metal in the sense we are not going to react it with elements belong to group 1. For example, if we try to react it with potassium, it could be an explosion. So that means it is really dangerous. But if you use elements belong to group 2, just like magnesium, they are not that much reactive as the group 1 elements, so that we can synthesize make hydrogen gas really easily. So therefore the best thing is reacting a dilute acid, just like HCl, dilute nitric acid with magnesium. So here from this we can take R as the answer, because R represents magnesium here. And I have shown you the chemical reaction that it occurs. And magnesium reacts with 2 HCl molecules to form magnesium chloride, releasing hydrogen gas. And also if we then if someone asks what type of reaction is this, so there we can classify the chemical reactions into 4 categories as single displacement, double displacement, dissociation reactions, and combination reactions. So this is a single displacement reaction, because here hydrogen in HCl is replaced by magnesium in this reaction. Therefore this is a single displacement. This is a single displacement reaction. Well, into question number 5. Balance the chemical equation for the reaction of R with steam. Okay, so it is just like, and this is something that tests your knowledge on the reaction of group 2 elements with water. So you know that magnesium oxide, magnesium reacts with steam to form magnesium oxide, releasing hydrogen gas. So it is the reaction is given here. And here one thing is I should mention here, it says the reaction of R with steam. So here but I have given the actual chemical reaction. Instead of magnesium you can put R, then R plus H2O gas, that means gas represents steam, arrow, then RO plus H2. So this is the answer for this question. I'm saying that instead of magnesium you have to use R, because they have clearly mentioned that these are these elements are not with the standard symbols, but then we have in the answer script we have to use the symbols that they have given. If we use standard symbols, sometimes we may lose marks even though the answer is correct. Okay, question number 6. Copy the diagram and sketch the variation of crust ionization energy for the above elements. So ionization energy, simply the minimum amount of energy required for an element or an atom at the gaseous stage to remove the outermost electron from its atom to make a gaseous 1 plus ion. So if we consider about the properties of first ionization energy, so down the group ionization energy decreases, and group 8 has the highest first ionization energy, and group 1 has the lowest first ionization energy. So and also you don't want to memorize this thing. If you keep this point in your mind, so here if you see these from the I have given the complete first ionization energy curve for the first 20 elements in the periodic table at the right hand corner of this slide. So here if you can see these two circles, so here this is actually of the shows the ionization energy values of nitrogen and oxygen, and also then from sodium, magnesium, aluminium. So this here from this you can see get an idea that in the these positions this group elements belong to group 2 and group 5 also shows intermediate peaks. That means always when it comes to the group 5, the next group element in the next group, that means in the group 3 has a lower first ionization energy than group 2, that is and also for the group 5 and 6 this shows the relationship between group 5 and 6. Always remember the lowest first ionization energies have belong related to group 1, then there are intermediate ionization peaks for group 2 and group 5, but the adjacent group or the group 3 and group 6 have relatively a lower first ionization energy than groups 2 and 5. But the next group, that means group if you consider about group 3, the next group is group 4. They have a first ionization energy higher than group 2 and 3. Okay, and for group 5 and 6, the group 7 has a higher first ionization energy than this. So keep this relationship, then you can get an idea how to draw this diagram. Always a zigzag shape, it takes a zigzag shape. And also this red color arrow shows that even down the group always first ionization decreases. Therefore keeping this thing in your mind, you can draw the variation of first ionization energy for the elements from A to R as this and this is the answer. So keep that thing in your mind. So group 8 has the highest first ionization energy, and helium is the element with highest first ionization energy, and first group group 1A or the group 1 has the lowest first ionization energy, where the potassium has the lowest first ionization energy. Okay, well this is from the first part of this question, and I would like to discuss one more question, and this is the question B that I am going to discuss today. This is this question tests our knowledge on the optics. Okay, well let me read the question. Question B: in the following occasion figures so in the following occasions 1, 2, 3 and 4 optical items or instruments were used. First one, a dentist examining teeth in the mouth of a patient. A surgeon, second one, a surgeon observing the internal organs in the body of a patient. Third one, a student observing cells in a blood sample in the laboratory. Fourth one, a cricket lover watching a cricket match from a far end of a pavilion. So the first question, part A: in which occasion a concave mirror was used? Part B: represent with a ray diagram the way in which an image is formed in such a situation. within brackets here, take the object as OA. Part 2. What was the occasion where an instrument with optical fibers was used? Part B. What is the name used for the phenomenon that the light rays undergo when light passes through an optical fiber? Then part C. State the condition that should be fulfilled to occur the phenomenon that is mentioned in B above. Question number D. Another instrument where the phenomenon mentioned in B above occurs was also used in another occasion given above. Mention that occasion and write down the name of the instrument that was being used in that occasion. Okay, we'll get an approach for this question. So first thing I would like to what I would like to discuss is about the differences between lenses and mirrors. So according to your syllabus, you have to discuss about you are going to deal with plane mirrors, concave mirrors, and convex mirrors. And there should be a correction in this table: concave mirrors and convex mirrors. Okay, not convex lenses. So concave mirrors are converging mirrors, and convex mirrors are diverging mirrors. And in concave mirrors, image may be real or virtual based on the position of the object, and in convex mirrors, image is always virtual, and in concave mirrors, image is diminished, same size or magnified, and in convex mirrors, image always diminished, that means really small, and the complete opposite is found for the lenses. So this shows the difference between lenses and mirrors. Two types of lenses: convex lens and the concave lens. If you consider about the convex lens, they have a curvature towards outwards, and concave lens has an inward curvature, and convex lenses are converging lens, and concave lenses are diverging lens. A convex lens form real, virtual, and inverted images, and concave lenses form virtual, erect, and diminished images, just like the opposite of the mirrors. Okay, so this is just a little reminder about the differences between lenses and mirrors. Okay, and at first instance, it says the dentist examining teeth. So for this, actually, they need to, and in order to observe a teeth, dentists need to have a magnified image of the teeth. So this can be achieved by using a concave mirror. Okay, so from this, we can obtain a clear, brighter, and a larger image, and they can easily diagnose or observe the teeth of patient by using a concave mirror like this. And also the image is not inverted if we just at the position of the image properly. Okay, second instance that they have mentioned in the question was surgeon observing internal organs of a patient. So this is the technique that is used is fiber optics, which use optical fibers. So they are used to visualize and examine internal organs such as stomach, heart, and bowels. So this shows a little picture of optical fibers. And instance number 3 explains about observing blood cells or minute structures by a student. So for this simply it requires a microscope. So compound light microscopes, electron microscopes, there are so many types of microscopes, but based on your knowledge or on your syllabus, according to your syllabus, this actually discuss about the compound light microscope. And the last instance that they say was a cricket lover watching a match from far end of a pavilion. So this requires a prism binocular. Binoculars are used to observe distant objects. So it deals with this. So four applications of optics. So now we'll go into the question. In which occasion a concave mirror was used? Occasion 1, where the dentist used to examine the teeth of a patient. And in the part B of that question, it is asked about us to draw the ray diagram. So I have shown you drawn the ray diagram here and shown you, and this is about reflection. So reflection, related to reflection, so when a light ray travels parallel to the principal axis, it reflects in a way that it passes through the focus. And also when a light ray hits the pole of the concave mirror, it reflects with the same angle to the same medium, and where here from the reflected rays you can see that images are not converging, therefore this is not a real image there. And when we extend these reflected rays in the opposite direction or the backward direction as shown in the dotted lines here, so it shows that the rays appear to converge, and this therefore this forms an virtual image. And the properties is, this is a virtual image, erect image, and it is magnified. That means as larger than the size of the object, and it forms behind the mirror. So therefore this is the answer for this question. Okay, question number 2, part 1. What was the occasion where instrument optical fibers was used? The simple answer is surgeon observing an internal organ in the body of a patient. And the principle here, the part B question is, what was the name used for the phenomenon is total internal reflection. Actually, total internal reflection is the complete reflection of a ray of light within a medium such as water or glass from surrounding surface back into the medium, or when light travels from denser medium to rarer medium. Actually, when light rays travel from denser medium to rarer medium, the light ray bends away from the normal. Then if we gradually increase the what we call the angle of incidence, then the angle of refraction also gradually increases. And also at a certain point, once we gradually increase the angle of incidence, there's an occasion where the angle of refraction is exactly perpendicular to the normal. At this moment we say it is as critical angle, and if we increase the angle of incident above the critical angle, it starts to reflect back into the same medium. This is simply the total internal reflection. So according to question number 3 C of the question 2, what is the fulfillment should be, light rays should be traveled from denser medium to rarer medium, and angle of incidence should be greater than the critical angle of the given medium. So these are some pictorial representations of the total internal reflection. So in the second image, the middle image shows the critical angle, and in the toppermost the image at the right hand, top of the right hand corner, shows the incidence total internal reflection, and it shows that angle incidence is greater than the critical angle of the given medium. And question number D is asking about what is the instrument and the instance. So usually total internal reflection is applied in cameras, telescopes and binoculars. And so for this one, the answer is a boy is watching a cricket match from a far end of a pavilion is the answer, and they use a prism, binocular. Okay, that is all for today that we have discussed, and hope you have learned something. And comment below if you need some more and more discussions. Thank you, goodbye, and have a nice day.